Is that orbital airburst?
Yeah, dude, what is it doing?
What the? My game
My
crashed.
game just crashed.
Oh my game. Oh my god.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Some things never change, but today Helldivers 2 had a massive update with a ridiculous amount of hidden changes. There's new Illuminate enemies and just a ton of buffs and nerfs to go over, so I'm going to break down everything that I found so far. But I think the biggest and most important change of everything here is the weapon attachments and how good every single primary weapon feels to use now. So lighting this off, we'll be starting with the new enemies. The Fleshmob is the big hulking abomination that just looks insanely cool and soaks a pretty ridiculous amount of damage. I don't know its advanced stats yet, but I will say having a bunch of these things run at you is just horrifying. They will eat you up insanely fast if you disrespect them. And when I was fighting, it felt like their legs were explosive immune. So the fastest way to kill them was just by blasting them right in the chest. At least when I used the HMG and the Purifier, that's how I was cooking them up. I also did try shooting the different heads off of them. And it looks like if you take all of the heads off of one side and then one from the side or the back, then they do die. But there is probably some kind of weird tech to kill them faster here. And we'll figure that out over the course of the week. And explosions that didn't hit them directly didn't really affect them that much, so I'm assuming that their legs are explosive immune, just like Hulks. They also did seem insanely weak to the new buff fire, and zombies being weak to fire is just like thematic and cool, and the way that they reworked fire was so that it does more damage to large lads, but it's harder to set them on fire now. I also did notice that the burn duration was substantially lower though, so either way, I love the way that this thing feels to fight, and I think it added that tanky kind of enemy that the Illuminate really needed in a way that made sense for the faction, so we don't have to bring heavy AT for it. Next up, we have the Crescent Overseer, and this guy just has a crazy mortar. You don't really notice the damage when they're by themselves because it's mostly chip damage, but when there's a bunch of them, you really start feeling its presence, and that's when it starts adding up with everything else, and it forces you out of cover, so it helped change up the faction enough gameplay-wise that it feels fresh, and they're also just easy to kill like normal Overseers, so you can just blast away with pretty much anything you want on them. And the new Jetray Stingfighter is just insanely cool. The visuals on this thing, the audio, like everything about it just added, like, I know we already had verticality on the faction, but I felt like it added more depth to it, and I actually really like this enemy. But this thing, Strafe, will absolutely cook you up if you disrespect it and don't dodge out of it. You can blow it up with any kind of medium penetration, but you have to be locked in because it's insanely fast. And your window of opportunity is very short if you're the main target. So if it isn't aggroed onto you, make sure you're blasting into the side of this thing to help your teammates out. Because if too many of these end up on the screen at once, it can easily cause a death spiral. Now, as for weapon balancing, every single weapon got massive buffs because they reduced the spread, drag, and sway of every single weapon in the game to such a negligible amount that it's almost not noticeable at all. And after quickly trying every gun, I have to say that every weapon finally feels good to use. The feedback when you shoot them feels amazing, and honestly, like, it's just a massive W across the board for every gun in the game. They might have to tweak some things in the future, but overall, I'm just really happy with every single gun. But there was a hidden change tied to this, though, so when you full ADS, there just isn't any recoil on any of the guns. Like, the HMG is just a beam when you start blasting with it, and I was completely cooking up everything the Illuminate had. Now, I won't individually go over every single weapon change because most of them is just like spread reductions and stuff like that, but I did put them all on screen for you to see here. What I do want to talk about, though, is this patch's biggest winners, especially with the weapon attachments. There's a few guns that massively stand above the rest, like the Dominator has new audio, and it was just obliterating everything I pointed it at. With the new stats and ability to mod it, I think it feels way better to use, and I think it's my favorite weapon of the update so far. The Tenderizer was already amazing, so as you grind the attachments, it's just going to get even better, and the Reprimand just shoots dead straight now. No more RNG bullets, and it just melts everything. So I'm in love with those guns right now, and I really want to get the drum magazine on the breaker because I think that's going to be insanely good too. I did see some people in chat though saying weapon attachments were pretty basic, and they're advanced on some weapons and basic on others, but I think overall I'm pretty happy with the system right now. I would just like to see them expand on it on like things like the Purifier and the Scorcher and stuff like that in the future. And just in general, I'm excited to grind out all the weapons to see what some of the true potential some of these things have. Like the spray and pray with an insanely tight spread is going to feel way better to use and will probably end up being one of the better primaries in the game once you're finished with it. So we'll see how that goes, but it definitely looks like they can and will expand on it in the future. Also, just a side note, the skins look insanely good for every weapon, so just grind your favorite weapons way to your heart's content and just see what you can do with them, because having this much player agency is something that we didn't think was going to happen. And honestly, I remember there was a bunch of people that just said that this was never going to happen, including myself. So I'm genuinely just happy about it. So now just to go over some of the super notable buffs and nerfs, the flamethrowers had magazine size increases, and I didn't really notice that much of a difference on the large lads personally. Now, the big weapon changes I know most people do want to hear about start with the Eruptor. They did fix the animation cancel, so you can't do that anymore to shoot faster, but they also increased the overall speed of everything by what felt like 25 to 30%, and it just feels insanely crispy to use now. Honestly, it's ridiculously fast, so you can just go crazy with it, especially if you have Siege ready on. And they also fixed the shrapnel, so it doesn't have weird dead zones anymore, and it's supposed to always go 360. We'll do a more in-depth shrapnel test in the future, but the well-placed shots do feel better on patrols, and I really liked it when I took it in. I also think this might end up being my go-to bot patrol gun. Maybe not bugs, maybe on bio artillery or something, but when I did blast on the bots, I couldn't one-shot hulks in the back. Either way, I think this is probably the final version of the Eruptor, and in its current state, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Now, as for the Ultimatum, on paper, it did receive a 1500 damage nerf, and it had its demo force reduced, so you can't break bot jammers or Bile Titan holes with it anymore, and they tried to make it more of an enemy killer, kind of, and I found that while I was shooting at abominations, unless it was a direct hit, it really didn't do much. But against chargers, I noticed a massive difference. It's way better at killing them now. So if you miss their head and hit near them, you pretty much instantly kill them. So that's a big W. It's also still great for impalers, but on Bile Titans, you have to hit them in the head to one-shot them now. If you do miss, it's we had to directly hit it and not kill it. So that can be pretty cooked up. And I did manage to one-shot a Hulk from the side from pretty far away with it, but from the front, it didn't really do it at all, so I need to test that more, and it's about the same at killing tanks. So if you were wondering how nerfed it is, it's better at some things and worse than others, and I think we'll get a better read on it in about a week because it does need some pretty in-depth testing, but I think they should have moved that lost 1500 damage all into explosive instead of it just being gone. I probably still won't use this thing very much for killing things other than a panic Bile Titan or an Impaler, because I only really use this as an ultimatum in the first place. Now, the biggest hidden change that I think is a massive W is more dynamic patrols. This is going to keep the game quite a bit fresher overall and 100% make the game more challenging long term, because you'll have to think a little bit more about target priority when you engage patrols. And on the bugs, we also saw massive patrols of nurses coming in, which made them way more fun to fight against, and they had way more of a presence. They used to always just be 3, but I saw up to 7, and on Bile Artillery, it was always 3, but I saw 4 this time. So I think as we play more of the spawn seeds and we get a better read on what kind of dynamic patrols we're really seeing, I really do think that as they expand on this in the future, we'll finally start seeing the hardest difficulty become more challenging. I also did notice a pretty drastic reduction to the time between breaches, where it had almost no cooldown, chaining them into each other at some stages, which I think that having that insane amount of enemies on the hardest difficulty is actually a very good thing. But unfortunately, they still haven't fixed dead zoning, and you can accidentally just group up with your team at the extract, and if it's too close to an edge, no enemies spawn. So I don't know when they'll fix that or if they'll ever fix that, but either way, that's been a problem since April, I think, last year. This is what it is, guys. Moving on, Eagle rocket pods got changed, and well...
Okay, my turn.
Okay, yeah, they're still dog shit. Not gonna lie.
Enemy bunker turrets got a spread increase.
Actually, hang on. Let's see if this thing instantly beams me across the map. Oh. Spreading. Nice. That's good.
Oh my god.
That's good. I'm really happy they increased the spread by 30.
It is what it is, guys. The soldier bots apparently shoot better. I didn't really notice that much. And the gunships also got an accuracy buff and are a little weaker armor-wise. And this ended up being a really horrendous change. I don't think that bots can have more accuracy on the hardest difficulty, because there's always a catch that comes with it. The factory strider accuracy on the Gatling guns also got increased alongside the gunship accuracy for whatever reason. So the gunships probably wouldn't have been that bad, but these guys with it was pretty cooked up, and it just got even more dangerous and way more annoying. The top cannon also had a crazy amount of accuracy last update, and it just got even more ridiculous with this one. Now, I know we're running it down on negatives right now, and people are probably mad hyped about the new patch, but look, it is what it is. We got to talk about this stuff, and Ragdoll is still completely broken on the bots. The fix of this was completely removed in February, and they have not acknowledged it as a known problem, so I guess we can assume this is an unfortunate feature now. Finally, the volumetric Wall of Doom looks substantially worse this update, and this is one of the main things that cooks up performance too. But outside of that, I just don't think it's very fun to look at, so I hope they seriously stop dodging this issue, and honestly just add the ability for us to toggle it off if we don't want to see it, or maybe just remove it from the planets altogether until they lock in performance, so that way we don't really have to use a mod for it for things to look nice, or whatever. Either way, that's the entire update of everything that I think is super important and worth talking about. But if you think that I missed something, please let me know in the comments. I will be doing a stream later maxing out and testing every single weapon that I can and looking for even more hidden changes. And overall, like, my feelings about this update are that I think it's like a solid 8 out of 10. I really love the new Illuminate stuff. I think that, like, the patch is insanely fun to play. The weapons are insanely fun to play. My big hangups are really just not being able to see very good on quite a few planets, and then the factory striders and Ragdoll. Like, those three things are my real big hangups. And I think that if they fix those things, it basically would have just been a perfect patch for me personally. So let me know how y'all are feeling. I hope y'all have a wonderful night. Stay blessed out there, and I'll hopefully see you later on.